Number 15. 2011 Tohoku earthquake and tsunami. Often credited as the Fukushima earthquake, the Tohoku earthquake made Japan the center of attention for most of 2011 and into 2012. At 2:46 p.m. Japan Standard Time, a 9.0 magnitude earthquake shook Japan for 6 minutes off the coast of the Sendai region in northern Honshu Island. Immediately after, a 40-meter tsunami crashed into the Japanese coast, taking buildings, cars, people, and anything in its path to be swallowed by the ocean. Both the earthquake and resulting tsunami was captured on video by residents, tourists, and CCTV, perfectly visualizing the violent nature of both. As of March 2015, the National Police released records of a total of 15,893 fatalities as a result of the disaster. The main highlight of the disaster was the extensive damage done to the Fukushima nuclear reactors, resulting in radiation leaking into the surrounding area, resulting in an evacuation of the area following a reactor meltdown worse than the one at 3 Mile Island in Pennsylvania. This has caused heated debate in Japan questioning the practice of nuclear energy into the country since it is an earthquake hot zone. While the earthquake sent Japan's economy into a deep recession, the country was able to come together and rebuild most of the affected areas within a year. Number 14. 2004 Sumatra earthquake and tsunami. It was just the day after Christmas in South Asia, and the beaches were packed with Christmas tourists from around the world and locals from the countries surrounding the Indian Ocean. At 12:58 UTC, an earthquake of 9.1 magnitude rocked the Indonesian island of Sumatra, sending a massive tsunami rippling the Indian Ocean and smashing large waves along the coastline. Locals and tourists alike filmed the scenes unfolding, initially expressing surprise over the extent the tides have washed out. While some recognized the danger of this, many remained on the beaches to observe it until it was too late. The waves smashed onto the resorts, and by the end, between 230,000 and 280,000 people were dead, and many more are still listed as missing. A majority of the dead were in Indonesia, and a total of 1.75 million people were displaced. The strength of the shockwave was enough for the tsunami to reach as far as Madagascar, Kenya, and even South Africa. Though casualties were considerably low compared to Indonesia, Sri Lanka, and India, which were the most devastated countries affected. It was the third largest earthquake recorded in history, and prompted one of the largest humanitarian responses, from donations all the way to volunteer and foreign aid relief. Number 13. 2011 Joplin tornado. Missouri is a state located in the middle of Tornado Alley and is no stranger to the phenomena. But on May 22, 2011, the city of Joplin was struck with a powerful F5 multi-vortex tornado, causing almost complete destruction to the city and surrounding area. As a haven for tornado chasers, many managed to capture the full force of the tornado, which ripped through the area for just over 40 minutes and picked up winds up to 320 kilometers per hour. In the aftermath, residents overlooked the complete devastation as entire neighborhoods were flattened, and many people now found themselves trapped in their homes and overturned cars. 158 people were killed and 1,150 were injured as a result of the disaster. As procedure, emergency crews were immediately dispatched from across Missouri to aid in the search and rescue efforts, and Governor Jay Nixon declared a state of emergency for the Joplin area. In the early hours of May 23rd, Missouri Task Force 1 reached Joplin, and the rescue efforts began. By 2015, it was calculated a total $2.95 billion in damages. Charity donations and relief supplies soared into the area, and even caught the attention of the royal family of the United Arab Emirates, who donated laptops to 2,200 high school students in the Joplin area, and $5 million to help rebuild the Mercy Hospital, which was destroyed in the disaster. Number 12. Hurricane Sandy. Originating in the Caribbean, Sandy traveled up the entire eastern coast of the United States, The storm is best known for making landfall in New York City, temporarily submerging parts of Manhattan and the other boroughs underwater. The storm lasted from October 22nd until November 2nd, 2012, dissipating over the Canadian Maritime provinces. By that time, 233 people were killed and $75 billion in damages were inflicted. When Sandy hit Jamaica, 70% of the residences were left without electricity, and the flooding caused in Haiti killed 54 people from drowning or waterborne diseases. The hurricane also became a hot topic of the upcoming presidential election, and incumbent President Barack Obama's response to the storm is credited as a deciding factor in his re-election days later. The HMS Bounty attempted to sail the ship out of harm's way, but tragically ran into the storm midway when winds changed Sandy's directions, leading it right into the ship. It sunk 90 miles off the North Carolina coast, killing 2 of the crew, including the captain. Number 11. Slave Lake Wildfires. This small town in northern Alberta, Canada was engulfed by massive wildfires between May 14th and 16th, 2011. Canada was in its height of its annual fire season, which amounts to approximately 9,000 fires every year around the country, and the wildfires that occur in Alberta rarely threaten populated areas. However, this particular fire quickly spread into Slave Lake, resulting in a mass evacuation of the town to avoid injuries and fatalities. Many evacuees filmed their flight from the town, showing the bellowing smoke above and the fires breaching the town. In total, 12,000 acres were burned and 433 buildings were destroyed, with a further 89 damaged. In total, 7,000 people were forced to evacuate, resulting in one of the largest displacements in Alberta history. Among the ruins were the town hall, library, radio station, and local mall. Despite the severity of the blaze, there was only one reported fatality due to a helicopter crash in the vicinity. An extensive investigation into the cause revealed arson was the likely cause of the inferno, though no person as of yet has been charged, and the investigation is ongoing. Number 10. Hurricane Katrina. The 5th hurricane of the 2005 season, Katrina also happened to be the most severe. Originating over the Bahamas, Katrina moved up to the southern American coast. New Orleans, Louisiana was particularly devastated after the levees meant to protect the city from flooding were breached, and gallons upon gallons of water flowed into the city. 108 billion in damages were reported in the aftermath, and between 1,200 and 1,800 people were killed. Katrina remains a high topic of discussion due to the controversial handling of the relief effort, or lack thereof depending on the perspective. The aftermath of Katrina resulted in the resignation of Federal Emergency Management Agency Director Michael D. Brown and New Orleans Police Superintendent Eddie Compass. News stations from around the world showed the almost anarchic nature of the southern coast in the aftermath, seemingly full of lawlessness and desperate people who were stranded. The 2005 storm was the final one named Katrina, as it was retired due to the high death toll and damage caused, making it too ironic and recognizable. Number 9. 2011 Christchurch earthquake. It seemed like a typical lunchtime in the New Zealand city on the 22nd of February 2011, but soon the residents felt the earth violently shake beneath their feet. Christchurch experienced a 6.3 magnitude earthquake, the second largest in the country's history, lasting around 10 seconds and occurring only 10 kilometers from the city center. The devastation was massive, with buildings collapsing all over Christchurch and nearby Letterland. Home videos surfaced of the quake, showing lunchtime commuters fleeing for their lives and structures crumbling under the immense force of the shaking. Sadly, many people were on the streets and sidewalks during their lunch break, resulting in many people being covered in rubble. In total, 185 people were killed, and between 1,500 and 2,000 were injured, 164 of which were serious. In the aftermath, city emergency officials found themselves pushed to their limits, with hospitals running over capacity ambulances rushing to go from scene to scene, and the fire brigades desperately trying to put out the fires started from broken gas lines. After a national state of emergency was declared, international offers of relief assistance flooded in, which the New Zealand government hastily accepted. Monetary donations from the Australian federal government and New South Wales totaled 6.5 million New Zealand dollars and 1.3 New Zealand dollars respectively, and an Australian rescue force was immediately dispatched to Christchurch and the surrounding area. 66 members of the Japanese USAR, along with 3 specialists and search and rescue dogs, also descended on the city within 2 days, helping ease the overwhelmed local emergency services. Number 8. Armorero Tragedy. The Nevado del Ruiz stratovolcano in Tolima, Colombia, lay dormant for 69 years until November 13, 1985, when it erupted. The surrounding towns were completely caught off guard, and a massive amount of mudslides, landslides, and debris flow buried many of the communities, with their inhabitants now trapped. The floods traveled a staggering 50 kilometers per hour, leaving little time for people to flee. The town of Armorero took the full force of the mudslides, killing 20,000 of its 29,000 inhabitants. The most iconic footage and photographs of the disaster is of Omaria Sanchez, whose legs had become trapped under the debris of her home, leaving her submerged in water up to her neck. Efforts to rescue her failed, and it was determined that there would be no way to save her without amputation. To the surprise of onlookers, Sanchez remained calm through her ordeal, speaking to her rescuers and singing to them. She agreed to interviews in exchange for sweets and soda. After 3 days, Sanchez died from exposure, while her mother and brother survived. The Colombian government came under heavy fire after the disaster, due to there being many warning signs brought before the government but failing to act in time. Number 7. 2013 Southern Alberta floods. A fairly recent and personal experience for Top 15's writer Jonah Petruick. Southern Alberta, Canada was barraged by floodwaters as a result of seasonal melt buildup overflowing the river systems, topped with heavy rainfall. Residents of Calgary and the surrounding areas awoke on June 19, 2013, to discover the waters of the Bow and South Saskatchewan rivers had overflowed and created what appeared to be a lake swallowing the neighborhoods bordering the rivers. Mountain communities Banff and Canmore experienced massive river flow, resulting in rock slides covering the Trans-Canada Highway, forcing officials to close the road. The town of High River experienced the worst of the disaster, with the water levels rising over vehicle roofs and stranding over 150 people on their rooftops, requiring airlift rescue. The Alberta government issued a state of emergency, and residents unaffected by floodwaters were urged to remain in their home for their safety and to not impede with emergency personnel. Footage from residents and local news was broadcast across Canada and even picked up some airtime internationally. In the end, 100,000 residents were displaced, 5 people were killed, and $5 billion in damages were a direct result of the flooding. The final floodwaters edged back into the rivers on July 12, and in an act of humanity, people from across Alberta and Canada made their way to the communities hardest affected to help clean out the homes and businesses. However, the legacy of the floods continue to impact southern Alberta residents to this day. Number 6. 1992 Hurricane Andrew. The 5th most destructive cyclone in American history, Hurricane Andrew flew over the Bahamas and straight into Florida's coast. The Category 5 storm reached speeds of 285 kilometers per hour, with the damage occurring in the Miami-Dade County, where 25,000 homes were destroyed and 100,000 severely damaged. An evacuation was ordered in 9 of Florida's counties, but many residences and apartment complexes huddled for shelter in the stairwells, and others covered under mattresses as their roofs collapsed. News anchors stayed sheltered in their studios and stayed on air to offer advice to those still able to turn in. By the time the storm dissipated, 26 people were killed as a direct result, with a further 39 indirect fatalities. Damages totaled $26.5 billion. Andrew was able to cause 28 tornadoes along the Gulf Coast, mostly in Alabama, Mississippi, and Georgia. Response proved controversial due to the rise of crime and looting in the aftermath, and it took 4 days for emergency relief to enter the Miami area, and a further 2 days for supplies to begin circulating. This was the last hurricane to be named Andrew, as the name was retired after that year's season. Number 5. 1987 Edmonton Tornado. While tornadoes are not a rare sight in Alberta, seldom do they even threaten the major metropolitan centers of the province. On July 31st, Alberta's capital of Edmonton was rocked by an F4 tornado, touching down in the south of the city. The twister traveled north up to the entire east side of the city, with the peak intensity in the Refinery Road district. It finally dissipated in the community of Evergreen at 4:25 p.m., just an hour from touchdown. Emergency services immediately descended onto the affected areas, and the nearby Canadian Forces Base placed its helicopters on standby for relief efforts. 27 people died as a result of the tornado, most of whom lived in Evergreen, which is a mobile home community. While home video wasn't as popular in 1987 as it is today, many residents quickly took out their camcorders to film the unusual sight, along with the local news filming the immediate aftermath. Changes were made in order to better warn residents of impending disasters, and the Alberta Emergency Alert System was developed and programmed to interrupt public and private broadcasts with warning messages, similar to the emergency broadcast system in the United States. In the summer of 2015, history nearly repeated itself 3 hours south in Calgary when a funnel cloud formed in the southwest of the city but dissipated before touching the ground. Number 4. Tornado outbreak of December 23rd through 25th, 2015. While many were preparing for Christmas celebrations, the United States found itself seized by a massive tornado outbreak, mostly in Illinois, Indiana, Tennessee, Alabama, and Mississippi. Within the 3-day period, over 30 tornadoes touched down across southern and midwestern United States, causing mass destruction and casualties in the areas affected. The strongest winds occurred near Black Grant, Kentucky on December 23rd, with wind gusts reaching between 90 and 100 miles per hour. Hail was also largely reported, with stones in Craighead County, Arkansas on the 23rd and Hinds County, Mississippi on Christmas Eve, measuring 2.75 inches. 12 of the tornadoes only reached F1 status, but an F4 was recorded on December 23rd between Holly Springs, Mississippi and Selmer, Tennessee. In total, 17 people were killed during the outbreak, 12 of which were a direct result of the tornadoes, and 10 of the fatalities were from the aforementioned F4. While most of the damage was minor to moderate, the Holly Springs-Selmer tornado has destroyed many small communities and country homes, and a relief effort has been set up to clean up and provide aid to the residents. Number 3. 2015 Washington wildfires. The eastern United States has been suffering a period of high temperatures for several years, particularly in California. As a result, many of the vegetation dries up and can create a severe fire hazard. As early as May 15th, wildfires began spreading through Washington state and the Canadian province of British Columbia, mostly due to lightning strikes. The largest of these fires was in Okanagan County, which was an amalgamation of several smaller fires combining into one. At its height, 304,782 acres were burned, and the towns of Conakry, Twisp, and Winthorpe. To date, it is the largest wildfire in Washington's history, and tragically, 3 U.S. Forest Service firefighters were killed in an accident on August 19th. Currently, there is no exact count of the amount of fires in Washington to occur during this time, but an estimated 1.1 million acres was destroyed, and 120 homes were destroyed in the Okanagan fires alone. By the end of August, most of the fires were being contained, and the firefighters from across the United States came to help local authorities, as well as 70 Australian and New Zealand firefighters who came to brief and lend equipment. States and provinces east of the fires saw a significant drop in air quality for much of the summer. As the winds carried smoke as far as Calgary, Alberta, sending their air quality index into a 500 rating in late August. Number 2. Mount St. Helens eruption. Now a well-known event across the United States and Canada, Mount St. Helens is an active stratovolcano located in the Cascade Mountain Range of Washington, 154 kilometers south of Seattle. The most violent eruption to date occurred on May 18, 1980, when the volcano exploded. In the days leading up to the eruption, Mount St. Helens showed significant signs of a possible eruption, with notable swelling on the north end of the mountain, causing many people to cautiously vacate the area. The explosion occurred around 8:30 in the morning and sent almost the entire north face sliding down in a large landflow. While no known footage of the eruption exists, various scientific and wildlife agencies captured the bellowing cloud of ash in the aftermath, which reached up to 80,000 feet and deposited ash in 11 states of the continental United States and 5 provinces in Canada. An estimated death toll brings the body count to 60, and $1.1 billion in property damages was a result of the landslide, and a mud flow formed from dirt and ash falling into the nearby Columbia River, transporting a total of 3 million cubic meters of debris over 27 kilometers. Since then, eruptions from the volcano have been relatively more minor, and the crater of the volcano shows the eruption point. The last eruption to date occurred between January 16th and July 10th, 2008, with only ash released with minor effect to the surrounding areas. Number 1. 1989 Loma Prieta earthquake. The San Francisco Bay Area was struck by a 6.9 magnitude earthquake lasting between 8 and 15 seconds. In total, 63 were killed and 3,757 were injured. Before the quake began, millions had tuned in to watch Game 3 of the 1989 World Series between the Oakland Athletics and San Francisco Giants at Candlestick Park, and the coverage captured the first ever live footage of an earthquake. After the quake ended, local news took to the streets and sky to film the destruction caused. Broken gas lines set fires throughout the area, and a section of the Bay Bridge collapsed, sending commuters fleeing from a potential collapse. As stated before on this channel, the small number of deaths have been speculated to be a result of fewer traffic on the bridge due to people staying home to watch the game and attending the game itself, meaning the death toll on the freeway collapse was due to lesser congestion on the road. The earthquake caused between 1,000 and 4,000 landslides and caused between $5.6 and $6.6 billion in damages. The earthquake also led to the decision to replace the Bay Bridge out of fear that it could not sustain another major earthquake, and construction on the new Eastern Span Bridge began in 2013. Got an idea for a top 15 list? Be sure to submit it at top15s.net/submit. Be sure to subscribe for future videos. Thanks for watching.